So basically, this first slide was about trying to level the ground for those that are not aware of what NFTs are. I was again talking earlier this morning about this. So NFTs are digital assets that link ownership of both physical or digital items encoded into a blockchain. This particular new type of tokens, uh, what basically they're doing is introducing scarcity to unique digital items. Something that the scarcity was first introduced with internet money or what we call Bitcoin. But in that case, you can exchange those assets. They are interchangeable. So you can change one Bitcoin for another, and it's basically the same thing. In this particular case, we have different assets. So NFTs, the key characteristics here to keep in mind is that they bring to the table non-fungibility, which in other words means that they represent unique or non-fungible items. And they have a rarity factor, which means what makes them valuable at the end of the day. Because without this rarity, they're worthless. That's why when you have a collection of 10,000 different artworks, collectors nowadays, they look for these particular very rare artworks because they're more valuable. Combinations of different attributes in those arts. This happens all the time with collections like Bored Apes or CryptoKitties or some of these type of collections that you might have heard of in the last few months. And the other point is that these tokens cannot be divided. So you could, with internet money like Bitcoin, you could divide it. It's fractionable, but not with NFTs. You cannot buy. It's the same logic as an airplane ticket. You cannot buy 60% of it or 10% of it. So you need to buy the whole. So first of all, I want to show some of the examples of what brands are doing today, trying to catch up with the NFT trend. These are some of the examples that we've been studying, case studies, in the recent months that really caught our eye. This particular is for fashion and luxury segment. We have Gucci that they have been, and Louis Vuitton, they have been really experiencing this transition into what we call virtual fashion. As you know, nowadays, our digital presence it's sort of becoming a little bit more complex. We have more opportunities to be represented in the virtual world, especially in metaverses. This is one of the examples on, for example, how Gucci used to produce virtual fashion for Roblox. So the same idea was used for Louis Vuitton, but they went one step farther. They didn't go into one existing metaverse or digital environment. Instead, they created their own. They created and developed their own game. And there, they created these unique items, which were NFTs. Burberry did something similar, but in a more conservative fashion, doing sort of a collectibles approach to it. The music industry is also one of the industries that it's really looking very much into this space. And they are using NFTs in different ways. One of the ways, as Grimes, for example, she just produced also a series of collectibles that can be distributed to her audience. Lil Pump, which is a figure in the hip hop industry, he did a similar thing with cards, collectible cards. These are very traditional in the NFT sense, traditional applications. Eminem did something a little bit more complex and interesting. He, on the other hand, released certain tracks within the NFTs. So people could actually get hold of these unique tracks from him. In the sports and entertainment, we're also seeing companies, associations, step into this. The NBA is probably one of the most remarkable examples of this. Also one of the most popular ones with NBA shots. Maybe you've heard of them. Aston Martin, another big company. In their case, they have partnered, what they did is to create this series of, again, multimedia, not just GITEX, they created this series of unique videos that their community, their fans could get hold of. And they do it for one particular event, which was the launch or relaunch of their team presence in the Formula One category. Looking at the entertainment companies, we can see even big players, heavily regulated players like Twitter, that they are even trying to position themselves in a friendly manner with this trend. Of course, they did it not in a way that they would profit from it. Instead, they used it as a mechanism for engaging with this community, with a community which is very much into blockchain technology, which is heavily using Twitter, so they did it in this way. They released a series of 140 animated pictures that they would distribute to people from Upgradable and Twitter that showed interest in this. So, just to sum up, here are some of the common applications that we've seen so far. We have best moments. We have this idea that was first and most popular with NBA shots, capturing the moments, these special moments, epic moments of real life, and converting them into collectibles, into memorabilia. There is also this idea of craftsmanship that can be applied very well in this fashion and luxury industry, where you could have a design signed by the very author of that, or a sketch, the first sketch behind a car, or the first sketch behind a luxury watch, something truly unique. Another thing, as I was mentioning before, is this idea of illustrations and virtual fashion. Again, if we like to wear nice clothes in the real world, we will be also interested in wearing and standing out in the virtual world. And metaverses are increasingly giving us this opportunity. And brands know this, and they don't want to miss out on this. Here are some more examples on the luxury segment, particularly in watches. We've been in talks with Richard Mille. They are some high-end watchmaker, and we've been exploring some of the cases where we could work with them in order to generate NFTs and put them into their structure in some way or another. Now, what we came up with is very interesting cases like using, of course, the collectibles side and creating these cards which are signed by the very designers of these watches. There are also these redeemable NFTs. So for instance, if you purchase an NFT, you could get the real watch delivered to you. This is something that it's not just being made in this industry. Even with cars, we've seen, I believe it was 2 months ago, Nissan did something similar in Canada where they released a series of NFTs linked to real cars. The ones that purchase those NFTs get hold of the real cars, limited editions. And the third case, also very interesting, is certificates of authenticity. At the end of the day, NFTs solve this particular problem, the problem of authenticity. And with NFTs, you can link these records to the physical assets. Now, one of the problems that we see right now with NFTs is the lack of programmability. This is simply explained in a way that when you just purchase an NFT, that's it. It's the end of the story. You purchase a CryptoKitty, you got the CryptoKitty, that's it. It doesn't change, it doesn't move. Okay. You can't do much with it. You can trade with it, you can speculate on price, that's fine. But then you don't have many other applications. That's why we are working on creating this programmability for NFTs to introduce new cases, business cases. As you see, they can unleash certain business cases to increase revenue, not only for businesses, but also for content creators. And also, and most importantly, create new ways to experience with the digital world that we are living in. So we see programmability in three different parts. First, we are creating NFTs that can be upgraded. And I will show you just some examples of that now. We are also creating time-limited NFTs, adding time settings. This is particularly useful with virtual events, something that we've seen increasingly in the last few months, of course, thanks to COVID. And the other case is data management and how we can turn NFTs into modules that can store data, be upgraded, and create transparency even in physical applications. This is a famous Bored Ape NFT. Now with upgradable NFTs, what we can enable is the original author to give rights to other holders of that NFT to introduce changes to the underlying assets, in this case, this image, this artwork. This could be one way for brands to position themselves, leveraging existing art, existing music, or any kind of digital asset within these NFTs. It is, of course, a new way of product placement. Another way we find upgradable NFTs particularly useful is when it comes to artist collaborations, which can be visual or multimedia. In the visual sense, the very first one of the examples that I always like to mention is the case of Andy Warhol. How he took one photograph of Marilyn Monroe, put some color in it, made a color collage, and sold it. He made tons of money on that. But the original photographer got nothing in return. In fact, he wasn't even paid for copyright. Upgradable NFTs create a layer 2 of these kind of artist collaborations, which can be regulated. You, as the initial creator of something, you can give people right to upgrade it or not. But if they upgrade it, you can get profit from it. You can get royalties. Another way of how we see artist collaborations being regulated through NFTs is in the music industry. It is very common that you have artists like Lana Del Rey or any other famous artist nowadays releasing albums, and then DJs taking that. Now, the legal process behind those collaborations is extremely complex. There are copyrights, distribution rights, and a lot of processes involved. Now, if Lana Del Rey would put her track on an NFT that can be upgradable, basically what she's doing is saying to the DJ, yeah, you can use it. Now, if the DJ, in this case, he can create his own track and release it, and all the profits from that will be shared with Lana Del Rey automatically through the smart contract. Now, when we move to time-limited NFTs, there are, I believe, two particular cases that make a really nice point. First, in-game assets. NFTs give game developers and users the possibility to create new ways on how these assets work within the game narratives. First of all, you can create in-game assets that really belong to the user, to the gamer. That's even in the case that the game shuts down or disappears. It doesn't matter because the in-game assets and their value is secured by blockchain. So they can take that asset, convert it back to USDT, or do whatever they want with it. They're free to go. They can also, for example, take that NFT, and if it's compatible with other environments, introduce that NFT. Of course, there should be some agreements between game developers, and use that particular asset in other games, or at least redeem it for different in-game assets. So the value is not lost, and it's not limited to a centralized virtual environment. We are created, in other words, interoperability. Time-limited NFTs, coming back to this, what can create is, for gamers, a way to introduce time limitations for the particular in-game assets. So for instance, you can purchase something that it is yours and it will always be yours unless you sold it, but it will be useful for only a particular time. Another really good example of time-limited NFTs, as I was mentioning before, is tickets. Nowadays, tickets are single purpose. So you basically buy a ticket, go to the event, use it, and that's it. It lost its value. By tokenizing these tickets, what we're doing is saying, first of all, you can securely and transparently, you can trade that ticket in secondary market. You can exchange it with other users. Yeah? There was always this case that, oh, we cannot make it to the event, so we want to get rid of it, and we need to sell it at a discount, right? Well, by tokenizing them, you can do it in a very transparent way, an easy way. And the other way, that we see is working is in a sense of becoming a collectible. Many events are really unique. They are unique experiences. For example, in this particular case, what I wanted to show, maybe the images are not so good, but still, um, this is a this is a photo of how the cabin of Virgin Galactic looks like inside. And as you know, recently it was their first travel. Now, if you could have a ticket of that first travel as a collectible, I can assure you it will be worth a lot on secondary market months after it was first launched at flight. And when it comes to the more traditional data applications of NFTs, what we wanted to understand is, okay, can NFTs be also not just images or tickets, but can they just contain data that can be upgraded, that can, and that users, and that data is unique because it belongs to every user. So that's why we came up with the idea of digital identity. This is a particularly useful case for government applications or institutions. Um, in this particular case, what you're doing is you are using the NFT as a text container, nothing else, nothing more than a text container that can be upgraded and can keep all your records in some way. And aside from digital identity, it can also have other particular use cases like vehicle records. Nowadays, that's how it looks. You fill a form, and although it can be digitized, there are still some limitations on how that data is centralized, handled by the government. With NFTs, you can have all that data on an NFT, which you can access even with a card and can be linked to the vehicle, and you can have records of the maintenance of the vehicle, accidents, hopefully not, and everything in just one place. And that record is always yours, and it will mutate as time goes on online. Wakatta is the company that I work for, and that is what we're doing. We're introducing these new types of NFTs. We are using the Substrate technology framework, which is basically the same used by Polkadot. We are a Polkadot compatible network. Thank you.